G'day and welcome back to the Eloquent in the Room. I don't know if you can hear it in the background, but there's a very cute little fat-looking pigeon dove kind of looking bird sitting on the fence outside my window. So, yeah, we're being serenaded as I speak. How you doing? I'm pretty well. I turned 60 this week. 2 days into being 60. It's going good so far. I feel like I'm okay with it. Oh, we make so much about age, don't we? Look, this is not going to be the best podcast episode in the world. This is just a tribute, and by tribute, I mean I have some general business that I need to share with you. So the nominations for the Australian Podcast Awards were announced about a month ago. I was not nominated. I did not expect to be nominated. My little independent podcast has a small but dedicated following, but emphasis on the small. But I was hoping that my listeners might want to vote for me in the Listener's Choice category. So if you go to australianpodcastawards.com/vote, search for the Eloquent in the Room in the drop-down menu, and it's as simple as that. Register your vote for the Eloquent in the Room. Thank you in advance. All I'm hoping to get from it is to raise the profile of the podcast a bit more. The current listenership of the podcast doesn't really reflect the profile I am building on social media. So I would really like to boost the podcast. I've put a lot of work into it over the last 2 years, and I do want to continue doing that. In the meantime, I have been very busy on social media, cultivating that profile and getting my skills up in video editing and having a ball. Turning 60 has been a good reason to have fun. I've been saluting 1961, saluting the tunes of 1961 and the events of 1961 just for funsies. I concluded my series on Kate Bush, 52 reels over a year. That was a great learning curve exercise as well as an emotional journey for me. So yeah, the social media thing has pretty much engulfed my time. And the year is winding up, and I won't have any new podcasts out till the beginning of the year. I had hoped that my EP would be launched by my birthday. That didn't happen. My producer and my band, which is the same person, Riley Holt, my son, hasn't been well. As my mum used to say, he hasn't been feeling too clever lately. He's had a bad ear infection, and it's put him out of action in regards to creating music for the last couple of months. We're only just getting back to writing and recording together again this past week. So the EP won't be out until the beginning of the year, probably. Welcome to new listeners. I know that my friend Patsy Minuti, aka Hella Cougar, has been putting out snippets of the interview we did together for the Madonna Whore Diaries series. So I've definitely noticed that particular interview has had a bunch of new listens. So if you are new listeners to the podcast, welcome. Go back to the start, or at least run through the list of podcasts and see what else you might want to listen to. I've got a strong feeling that you might want to listen to 2020 An Orgasmic Oddity. That was my first series, and it's all about authentic female sexual empowerment in the face of so much myth and mystery. Yeah, I know, just listen. Don't ask questions. What else has been happening? Speaking of podcast interviews, I interviewed Phoebe Dorin about what it was like to grow up in a cult. I called it, I grew up in a cult, but my sexuality saved me. And I also interviewed her a second time for the Madonna Whore Diaries. She was my Exhibit A in regards to a mother. And she was pregnant at the time when we talked, and we talked about sexuality and motherhood and pregnancy. And listeners to those two interviews will probably notice that we had a fantastic rapport. We really go in all sorts of directions when we talk, and that seed was sown back in June, actually, because she came to me then and asked to interview me on her podcast called Sexuality After. And our first interview was at least 2 hours long, and it's out now. You can listen to that on iTunes and other podcast platforms, but you can also watch the interview on YouTube. And I'll drop that YouTube link into the show notes. I'm also going to drop the voting link into the show notes. The cutoff to vote is November 28. Remember, my beautiful people in the Northern Hemisphere, that means November 27 because we're pretty much a day ahead. So I'm going to leave it there. This little preview episode was just checking in, was just me asking you to vote, and was just me letting you know that Phoebe's interview is out. And to say hello to new listeners who've been listening to me and Patsy talk. Hopefully me and Patsy, aka Hella Cougar, will do some live interviews on her TikTok. We're going to do that in the new year. She's really busy at the moment as well, but I'm really looking forward to that. I'm going to fuck off now and just send you all my love and previews. God, how do you keep them brief? Talk to you soon. And don't forget, like, subscribe, rate, review. You can also join my Patreon at patreon.com/The Eloquent in the Room. And don't forget to check the show notes for all the links that I've mentioned. And don't forget to vote for me for the Australian Podcast of the Year Listener's Choice. Okay, I really am going to fuck off now. Mwah.